Have you ever had your worst fear come true? We have. On this episode, I'm going to tell the story about how our worst due diligence nightmare became real life. And we live to tell the tale.
Warning. This podcast features the truth about owning and operating mobile home parks. The following program is not designed to be sexy. It will not hype you up on MHPs. Rather, this is a raw take on this industry and how you find your own path to success. Welcome to MHP IRL, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, with your host, Ryan Norris.
We started our mailing campaign in the fall of 2015. As of this recording in early 2018, of the thousands of mailers we've sent out, the only time we've ever successfully purchased a mobile home park from a mailing campaign was back in the spring of 2016. That once fruitful garden of off-market deals easily accessible via personalized letters is now a barren wasteland of delusionally high prices and confirmation bias. We've stopped mailing campaigns altogether. Over the span of nearly 3 years and thousands of mailers and thousands of dollars, my response rates have plummeted recently. And I'm not alone. Now that everyone has a database and is mailing, owner responses, when they rarely do occur, fall into one of two buckets. Owners who think that their trailers are made of solid gold, or owners fueling a bidding war by calling down the list of mailers they've saved over the years. We've created a monster, y'all. Brokers lose because owners can completely circumvent them. Buyers lose because they must literally bid up their own prices or lose out the chance at the deal. Owners win. Big time. But before that goose that laid the golden eggs was fattened to the point of near death, Ian and I were lucky enough to find one of those off-market deals via a mailer. And it turned into a nightmare. Our journey began in the fall of 2016 when we finally started receiving due diligence documents from the seller. This was our second deal, but really it was our first as we weren't partnering with experienced operators this time. The deal criteria looked great. Below market rents, an out-of-state owner who openly admits she let the park go, city water, septic tanks, located in an MSA we wanted scale in. Our strategy was clear. Turn the park around and cash flow. So, we began crushing through the Frank and Dave due diligence list. Septics, 1 per home, check. Rents, confirmed below market, check. Roads, they're a mess, but nothing a little capital can't fix, check. Rent rolls, collections issues, but they appear controllable, check. Park-owned homes, minimal with likely deferred maintenance. Build estimated repair costs into pro forma, check. Utilities, city water, submetered, check. The one thing we didn't think to check? Water bills. After we closed, our first order of business was spreading the word about the upcoming rent raise to market and begin addressing the collections issues. Our first mistake was believing the tenant stories. To date, we still technically struggle with collections at Cherry Valley. We have 4 perpetual late payers as of this recording, but we don't let any of those 4 fall behind more than a month. So we've always collected 100% for each month, but some of those rents come towards the end of the month, and with late fees. So essentially we run a late fee collections business with those 4. I'll save that story for another time, but we learned the hard way that you have to be tough up front with late payers, or you end up fueling an unfixable feedback loop where you've essentially given permission to consistently pay late. Eventually, we got our first water bill. It was enormous. At first, we thought it was a mistake, so we filed an error report with Buncombe County. That only ended up yielding an adjustment of a few dollars. We calculated well over 13,000 gallons a home, which is way above the 4,000 to 5,000 gallon average per home we experience at our other properties. We then tested a random sample of the submeters. They were all functioning properly. The logical conclusion was that there was a massive leak in the park. We set out to find the leak, But with sonar proving useless and no real viable other technological option, we basically were faced with trying to dig up the entire park. It turns out none of the original plans for the park's infrastructure were anywhere to be found. 2 of the former owners had died. The construction plumbers in the area don't keep records for more than 10 years in the past. The county wasn't interested in the lines beyond what they owned. We called several plumbers. The ones that actually showed up wanted nothing to do with it. We were on our own. Over the course of months, we essentially gained a master's degree in infrastructure plumbing. Through banging the phones and networking, we eventually discovered that there were multiple feed lines and supply lines. Half the park was on a 5/8 inch input, and the other half was on a 2-inch input. The system was a mess. Then, the water went out, and people threatened to call the local news. With no infrastructure layout, no plumber to help us, no obvious leak, confusing information about how the system worked, and tenants threatening all sorts of action against us, our backs were against the wall. Our worst nightmare had come to fruition. Then we got our next water bill. It was even more expensive. Luckily, our investor for this deal is an absolute rock star. He told me a story I want to share with you. The short version is that my investor had been part of a purchase of an old office building that developed an elevator problem. They had 2 options: attempt a fix of the elevator or replace the entire system. Attempting the fix wouldn't guarantee a long-term solution and was costly. Alternatively, replacing the entire system in an old office building would put a significant dent in returns. Inaction was not an option. So, my investor set out to learn everything he could about the issue, the costs, the implications, get all the options on the table. He distilled all available information down to a simple math problem that pointed towards opting for the fix rather than the replace. Flash forward several months, and he learned he had made the wrong decision. Now they had to double back and fix the entire system. The point of this story wasn't that he made the wrong decision. The point of the story is that when inaction isn't an option, you must do the best to gather the information you can, then make the best decision you can at that moment. Then don't second guess yourself after the fact, especially if you are wrong. If you want to make the big bucks, you must take on the responsibilities and pressures of being in charge. Beating yourself up after the fact isn't productive. Perfect information is impossible to achieve. So don't try to achieve it. Make the best decision you can without taking shortcuts, then move on. With that advice in hand and our investors' full support, we decided to take action. First, we needed a plumber. Leaning on my sales background, I found over 30 plumbers in the greater Asheville area. I called them all. Literally, everyone passed on the opportunity, except for one super knowledgeable gentleman who was up for a real challenge. His solution? Install a water pump that addresses the lack of pressure, then fix the leaks individually as they presented themselves. The quote approached $100,000. It was decision time. Should we attempt to identify and fix a leak, or should we address the water pressure issue head on? We decided to install the pump, which would mean a massive capital call within 9 months of closing on the property. Our investor didn't hesitate. He rewarded our brutal honesty with his full support. This is huge advice. Not all investor money is created equal. Make sure, especially on your first deals, that you have patient and understanding money. You're going to make mistakes. You don't need added pressure. Trying to hit certain return thresholds under pressure has caused many a real estate investor to make regrettable decisions. We're lucky to have our investor. Things could have gone very south if we had picked the wrong person. Flash forward several months, and I'm happy to report that as of early 2018, it appears we made the right call. The water pressure is up from less than 10 psi to over 60 psi, and the water situation seems to be under control. That's not to say that the lines aren't brittle and won't rupture soon, but we opted for the pump installation because some people couldn't even take showers. It's easy to dehumanize your residents, especially when staring failure right in the face. But these are people. Ian and I decided to do right by our tenants. Even if that means, no pun intended, we take a bath. I'd like to end with a quote from a friend of mine and owner of Affordable Communities Group, Mike Conlin. You make your money at signing. What Mike means by this is that if you buy these assets at a low enough basis, you can overcome a lot of potential landmines. In other words, you win by stacking the deck in your favor up front. Our biggest fear became reality. We survived. Why? Because we didn't overpay for the property. We didn't chase a thin deal that required things to go almost perfectly to hit some arbitrary number a tough investor put on us. We found the right investor. We found the right opportunity. When we stepped on a landmine, it didn't kill us. What does this mean for you? Do your homework. Buy your properties the right way. But more importantly, like my investor told me, make the best decision you can in the moment. Don't take shortcuts gathering information, but also don't let fear paralyze you. Dan Gardner argues in his book, The Science of Fear, that fear is the most motivating human emotion. Don't let fear talk you out of a great deal. And breathe. Someone once told me that Nick Saban, the current coach of Alabama's football team, allows his staff 30 seconds to pout after a turnover. After that, they must compose themselves and push forward. No more complaining about the past. You're going to make mistakes. Take a deep breath. Compose yourself. Remember, you aren't going to achieve wealth without also taking significant risk. Be bold. Be smart. Be composed. This is Ryan Naris. Thank you for listening.
Did my podcast help you? If so, I need your help too. So I can provide you with more helpful content, leave me a 5-star review. That 20 seconds of your time means the absolute world to me. There's really no better way to say thank you. Let's connect. Reach out to me on my website, www.archimedesgrp.com. Leave me a line with some feedback so I can better serve you, and I look forward to hearing from you.
I'd like to thank Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart from the Mobile Home Park Academy. Without their help, we wouldn't be where we are today. Check out their podcast, The Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. They'll help you fill your knowledge gaps fast. We were featured on their episode 78. Give it a listen.